Welcome to the Casual Birder podcast. I'm Suzy Buttress. As a casual birder, I take pleasure in watching the wild birds around me, wherever I am. In my show, I share the joy of birding. I tell you about the birds I've seen, speak with experts and enthusiasts, go on bird outings, and I share stories from birders around the world. Welcome to the first episode of 2026, and I'm joined today by my husband, John, who has been my birding partner for January, which is the review we're going to do this episode. Welcome, John.
Thanks very much, Suzy.
We started the month in Norfolk, ended it in Hampshire, but had several birding trips during that time and had a pretty wonderful month. Saw a few lifers and a few birds that we don't get to see very often at all. So quite a great start to the year. Last year, we both achieved our very first 200 species year, which was really exciting. What was your 200th bird?
A ruff.
You got that in August, I think, so you did really well. What did you end up the year on?
215 in
Wow,
the end.
Yeah. So I think I ended up on something like 205 or 206.
Right.
My
And what was your 200th?
My 200th bird was, there was a little bit of debate about it because I was on a pelagic trip at the time. And I thought my 200th bird had been a storm petrel, which I was thrilled to have seen.
Just the sort of bird you'd expect to see on a pelagic trip.
Exactly.
You might think.
Yes, I was really, really pleased because I spotted it. I haven't seen them very many times in my life, but I know they're a small kind of blackbird-sized bird with a white rump and can be sometimes sort of fluttering on top of the water. And I quickly texted you because you weren't on the same trip as me and said, my 200th bird is a storm petrel. I'm so excited. And then you said, didn't we see storm petrels in Shetland? And I was like, how could I have forgotten? So, yes, we had been to Musa in Shetland and seen storm petrels there. And so I had totally forgotten, which was terrible. So then I was on the lookout for my next bird to make it to 200. As we were coming back into port, the group lead on the boat pointed out a Caspian gull. We did pass quite a mix of birds all feeding on the surface, and amongst them was a Caspian gull, which I've never seen. I took ages because I still struggle with some of the gulls, and I didn't want to put it down as my 200th bird if I wasn't absolutely sure which bird it was. We took lots of photographs. I brought them back. I begrudgingly thought, OK, it's going to be this one. I'll probably end up having it because, you know, how many more new bird species am I going to see this year? And when I got back to shore and we were going through the photographs and I said to you, oh, yeah, and on the way out from the port, as we started the journey, someone saw a glossy ibis, which I missed, unfortunately. And there was a black redstart on the harbour wall. And you immediately said, a black redstart? And I said, yeah, but, you know, I know I've seen those this year. But that was in France. I hadn't seen any in the UK. So I had completely dismissed this black redstart. And you've made me realise that was my 200th bird. So I was thrilled that it was one that I fully could recognise, which is what I had thought with my storm petrel. I didn't want to have my 200th birds being something that I don't think I'd recognise again just because someone's told me that's what it is. But thank you so much for remembering that not only had we been to Shetland and had an amazing time, that I'd also seen the black redstart in France and not in England.
I just love the irony. You were on a pelagic trip and your 200th bird, you know, could have been a Manx shearwater or a Balearic shearwater maybe. But no, your 200th bird on a pelagic trip was a black redstart.
I was thrilled though, and it was a really good trip, and we're going to do one again this year, which you're going to accompany me on. So we should both be able to pick up some good new birds that we won't be able to see anywhere else. And sadly, this year we're not going to Shetland, so there's quite a few birds that we achieved last year, managed to have some really nice sightings of, that we won't be having this year. So hopefully on the pelagic we'll get a few of those.
Yeah, in getting to 200 last year, having that 2 weeks in Shetland in spring really made a huge difference to getting to the 200 fairly quickly. And I don't want to sound blasé about it, but relatively easier compared to previous years.
To know that we have actually seen 200, well over 200 UK bird species just blows my mind. It's just amazing.
In the calendar year.
Within the calendar year, exactly. So I'm all fired up to try it again this year. It will be wherever we visit in the UK, but I want to enjoy seeing the birds. I don't just want it to be a tick box exercise. However,
absolutely, yeah.
As you said to us at the beginning of the year, if we're anywhere where there's an unusual bird, a rare bird, and it's within reasonable distance. And I think we've set ourselves maybe within 45 minutes or an hour's travelling time from where we are. We're not going to take really long journeys, but if we happen to be in an area and there's a rare bird there or a bird that we've not seen this year, we'll make the attempt to go and see it.
Yeah.
So, yes, without all this extra preamble, it's just last year was a really exciting year. And this year, I hope, is shaping up to be the same. We have a little gentle challenge between ourselves, inspired by our community members, Rob and Alison, who are very good birders and just inspire us so much, to try to get 100 bird species every month. And as we go through the year, a lot of those species will be ones we've seen in previous months. I really like the idea of sort of seeing what comes up and what birds we're starting to see at certain times of the year. So January the 1st, we were out there in Norfolk, making sure that we saw as many species as possible. Do you want to start us off on what happened?
Yeah, it was really helpful actually being in Norfolk. We'd been up there for Christmas 2025 and we're still around in Norfolk for the first few days in January. For people that know that part of the world, they know it's, I suspect it's great for birding any time of year, but we've been lucky enough to be there in the winter months in recent years. And yeah, it's absolutely tremendous. Yeah, you were explaining about we're not the sort of birders that are likely to travel all across the country to see rare or unusual birds, but if it's within 45 minutes or an hour's travel from home, we will go and see it. We were really lucky. We were staying near Clyde next to the sea at the start of January, and not far from Clyde is a seaside town called Sheringham. And towards the end of 2025, there have been some sightings of a very rare eastern black redstart, and we were keeping our fingers crossed that it would hang around until January so we could add it to our 2026 list. And it was one of the very first things we did on the 1st of January 2026 was to pop into Sheringham from where we were staying in Clyde. Sheringham was about a 10 to 15 minute drive away, so very, very close. There's the sort of twitching distance that we've decided is okay for our own personal rules. And yeah, happily, we got really good views of that eastern black redstart. So
we'd actually seen it for the first time on December the 31st and had amazing views. We were a bit worried it might have gone. It was a bit of a cold, windy day. Actually, John, you'd seen it before, hadn't you? Because you went out for a little scouting trip. Yeah, it was very, very obliging. There was a sort of alleyway slightly back from the seafront at Sheringham, and the black redstart was doing what black redstarts do. Sort of, it was all around the buildings. It was on rooftops, windowsills, flitting from house to house. And yeah, very obliging. We had extremely close views of it, didn't we? For 2025, the sad thing is that it didn't count as a new species because it's only a subspecies of the black redstart, but it was a stunning bird to see. However, for 2026, we haven't yet seen a black redstart, so it absolutely counted on our species list for 2026. I really like the irony that it was one of the very first birds that you saw in 2026. Whereas in 2025, it was your 200th bird. Just popping in here to say a little about black redstarts. Black redstarts are members of the chat family, which includes nightingales and that very familiar garden bird in the UK, the European robin. It has quite a similar dumpy appearance to the robin, large black eyes and a sharp bill. However, their plumage is quite different from the brown red-breasted robin, being largely charcoal grey, with a black face and a chestnut tail, which they vibrate or shiver. They eat insects and, like other flycatchers, will fly out from a branch or ledge to catch an insect before returning to their lookout. They have adapted very well to urban environments and can be found on building sites and in industrial areas. They're quite common in continental Europe, but rare to see in the UK. And the eastern black redstart is an even rarer bird for the UK, as it breeds in Central and Eastern Asia. The bird we saw may have been brought here by strong easterly winds. It was an absolute beauty, with gorgeous chestnut plumage on its belly and tail, dark brown wings and head, and a black throat patch. You can hear more about black redstarts in my episode 58 with my guest, Dusty Gedge. And now, back to my chat with John. There's fewer than 100 breeding pairs in the UK.
Of black redstarts?
Yeah.
Wow. No wonder we hardly ever see them.
And they reckon there's only 400 birds wintering in the UK. So actually, quite a hard bird to see.
Yeah, and for the subspecies that we saw, the eastern black redstart, I think I heard that there's only ever been a handful of sightings in the UK, ever. So we were extremely lucky to see that, and that it was so close to where we were staying.
And a beautiful, beautiful bird. So 1st of January was a very good day. I did some birding from the property. I got 16 species, and that was being able to see into the distance over the marshes where I could see things like shoveler and teal and widgeon. So I was very pleased to just be out on the back step seeing those.
Now, I don't want to dwell on the 1st of January too long.
No,
because we've got 31 days to run through.
Well, we won't go through day by day, but go on.
But it would be remiss of us not to mention the jacksnipe that we saw on 1st of January as well.
Oh, yes. Another bird that is one that we find quite hard to see. That was at Cley, wasn't it? We saw it from one of the hides in Cley.
Yeah, we got back from Sheringham after seeing the eastern black redstart, and then did a walk round the Cley Norfolk Wildlife Trust Reserve. Went to some of the hides. The jacksnipe was seen from the last hide we went to, actually really close to the hide, wasn't it? Impossible to see. It was really handy. There were people with scopes trained on it, and they would point it out, because if you were, they're so well camouflaged, if you just gave it a cursory look, you wouldn't see it, even though it was very, very close to the hide itself.
Yeah, it took me a long time to see it. I mean, there were a lot of birders in the hide, and it was really difficult to get, because you had to kind of look to one side out of a window, and it was, there was only a few spots where you could really see it. So I waited. Luckily, it hung around for quite a long time. So once the hide had cleared, and it was bitterly cold as well, looking out that window. Once the hide had cleared, I was able to see it. I particularly wanted to see, because it was just snoozing or just sitting in one spot. It wasn't bouncing. I wanted to know that it was a jacksnipe, because they've got this very characteristic kind of bounce. There's that, and there's also the head stripe. On the jacksnipe, they don't have a bright central stripe.
That's right, yeah. The common snipe has the pale median crown stripe. The jacksnipe doesn't, because of how it was snoozing, and you could see the top of its head. So that was how you could tell it was a jacksnipe. That
was brilliant. And we saw a common snipe walk past as well. I ended up the day with 41 species, which isn't bad for the 1st of January when it was cold and blowing a gale, and I was quite pleased with that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good start, isn't it? But like I said, being in Norfolk helps massively. And being so close to the Cley Nature Reserve as well was a big help.
You did get at least one extra bird that I missed. You saw a kingfisher.
I did, yes.
As we were walking, I just totally missed it, and I was really gutted about that, because I would have loved to have had that added to my January list. At the beginning of each month, I note the first bird that I hear and see. I post it on my social media channels, and I ask you to tell me what you've noticed too. It's quite nice at the end of the year to see what those birds have been, and January is even more exciting, because it's a chance to note the first bird of a brand new year. The first bird I heard was a herring gull, which was good, because it was in that coastal location. It's not a bird I often hear. And when I looked up outside, the first bird I saw was a blackbird foraging on the lawn. So that was my very first birds of 2026. So the next couple of days we were still in Norfolk, so we were able to have a little wander around a few different places. We tried to maximise the kinds of birds we might see there. So we went to locations where we had previously seen birds we wouldn't see elsewhere. And we had a couple of target birds, some of which you got and I didn't get. So well done you. We went to Holcombe Estate. We walked through the woods there. We didn't go onto the beach this time. We have in the past seen shorelark at Holcombe, but there hadn't been any reports of them. So we had a quick look at the visitor centre. We had seen grey partridge in the past there, but no luck this time. So we just had a wander out through the woods to the hides, and we did get Goldcrest and Firecrest to add to our list, which I was really pleased about. Oh, and Tree Creeper. So I felt good that I got those ones.
Are we choosing not to speak about the lifer that we saw on the 2nd of January?
Oh, was that 2nd of January?
So yeah, first of all, we went to we've got the Bird Guides app, which gives us notifications of when unusual birds are
It's
seen.
actually a subscription, isn't it? You have to pay for.
It is, yeah. And we got an alert about so far this winter seems to have been very big on bean geese in the UK, all over the UK. But again, one that was reported less than half an hour from where we were staying was Taiga Bean Goose. I think you pronounce it Taiga, or is it Taiga? Anyway, Taiga Bean Goose. And we were we stood around in the bitingly cold wind, scanning with our scope through a field full of other geese, grey legs and pink-footed geese, white-fronted geese, which was really nice to see as well, and one lone Taiga Bean Goose, which we eventually located, and thanks to the help of some very experienced birders that were also there to try and see the Taiga Bean Goose, they helped to confirm that's what we were indeed seeing.
Yeah, I would have found it impossible to find that bird. We had heard of another one that had been seen, one bird in amongst a flock of 1,500 grey-lag geese. So I thought there's absolutely no chance we're going to spot that one, because you just get overwhelmed with numbers and trying to find that bird that's different. And this one was a bit difficult as well, because it was feeding behind sort of tussocks of grass, and it's a little bit smaller than the grey legs it was near. And we were facing into the wind, of course, and it was a really, really cold and blustery day, to the extent that it was quite hard to keep the scope standing without falling over. But eventually we did see it. I want to give a quick shout out to Chris from Birding Eco Tours, who came over to us. I started chatting to him because we had some communication with him about a holiday that we're taking later this year, and we were hoping that Birding Eco Tours might have been able to help us out with that. It didn't work out, but we're hoping to travel with them in the future. And then I saw his car parked right next to ours. I thought, so I'll go talk to him. I think he was leading a tour group there, but he came over and showed us on John's scope where to look. So we saw it. And then we had some more sightings a bit later on, talking to a guy called Graham, who it turned out this was his local patch. And he helped us with information about the bean goose. And I think it turned out he'd been the first one to spot the eastern black redstar in Sheringham. So, yeah, amazing who you get to meet when you talk to people at these twitches. Now I know to look out for a sort of slightly shorter, grey-leggy looking bird that's got a dark beak, not a carrot-coloured beak. And if they took off, if you knew exactly which bird you were looking at, you might see, I think it's got a wider dark band on its tail feather. Either that or it's got a narrower tail band. But there's something different about that to grey-lag geese. But it was quite a hard sighting. So I was really pleased we got it and had it confirmed, because it took us a long while. And I was just looking at all these geese and I cannot tell them apart from very obvious Egyptian geese and the greater white-fronted geese. I'm really pleased that I've started to be able to identify by myself. But the tiger one was quite tricky, but yeah, that was a really good lifer for the 2nd of January.
I guess the other thing worth mentioning is where we are in Hampshire, very rarely see pink-footed geese. So being in Norfolk at the end of 2025 and then the start of 2026 allowed us to see pink-footed goose.
Yeah, and great flocks of them as well. So not just the one or two, but big flocks. Yeah, so if we move on, because we are, dawdling a little bit through the month. Apologies, missing out my lifer. We went to Holcombe and then we were due to come home, but we stayed one extra night, because John had come up with this plan that, if we're in an area and there is a rare bird, we should make the effort to go and see it. And there had been one in the area, but it was going to be slightly the wrong direction and we were due to go home. But we decided we'd stay an extra night and see this bird. Unfortunately, on the day we left our accommodation that we'd been staying in for the first week of January, the snow started and we had very heavy snow. So it was a very unpleasant journey to this location where there was a black-winged kite, which is an extremely rare visitor to the UK. When we got to the site, we'd had a few mishaps along the way, and I was quite freaked out by the depth of snow and the potential problems that I would have walking through snow along a canal path. So I chose not to go, and I stand by that. It's a shame because since then, Rob and Alison, as I mentioned earlier, have been up to see it in Hickling Broad and had fantastic views of it for long periods. But again, another very cold day, quite a bright day, quite a pretty day. But I decided to stay by the car while John braved going off to see the black-winged kite, which you did eventually see, didn't you?
I did, yeah. It took a while. And by the way, I should say, well, that sort of broke our twitching distance rules, but not really, because as you said, we were on the way home anyway. We just chose to drive a slightly different route home to take in this place, which was a place called Ludham Bridge in the Norfolk Broads. And yeah, as you say, it was pretty snowy there, probably about a quarter of a mile walk from where we'd managed to park the car. I saw lots of other birders, well, a handful of other birders that were hanging around, obviously trying to see the black-winged kite. I think it had not been seen for a couple of hours. So I chose to carry on the path for a bit because these other birders said, oh yeah, there have been bearded tits around. So yeah, I carried along the path for a bit, and within about 100 yards of leaving these other birders, I could hear bearded tits in the reeds doing their sort of pinging call. That was really exciting. And then what was really nice is they started to appear from the reeds, and then they flew across the path right in front of me. So that was nice. And yeah, I'm sorry
happy for you.
I'm sorry you didn't get to see that, because I know they're one of your favourite birds. They're very, very smart, pretty little birds. Unfortunately, in going along the path to scout out other birds, I missed when the black-winged kite first flew back. The other birders actually were great. They, as I was walking back, even though I didn't know them, they were sort of waving to me to say, it's here, it's here. By the time I got there, it had gone again. So that was a bit disappointing. I did hang around for a bit longer, and thankfully the black-winged kite came back again. The views of it were very, very distant, but still I was able to get the scope on it. It was flying. In fact, it was hovering. I guess more experienced birders know this, but yeah, it was sort of hovering almost like a kestrel. I didn't know black-winged kites did that. So you could see that hovering behaviour, and you could see the distinctive, really, really pale wings. So it was unmistakably the black-winged kite. It would have been nice to have closer views, but that wasn't to be on that occasion. So that was the 3rd of January and lifer number 2, which was remarkable. The other thing I was just going to quickly say before we move on is that was quite a good spot at Ludham Bridge there for seeing the winter thrushes, fieldfare and redwing, the sorts of birds that, they're here with us just for a few months, really. So getting the opportunity to see them in quite early January was great, and add them to our 2026 list.
I stayed by the car, but that did give me the opportunity to see about 10 snipe in a field next to me, which was pretty amazing. It was because it had snowed and they were walking along the snow, so easy to see them. They weren't hidden in reeds or anything. And I got talking to quite a few other birders, because several birders were parking in this lay-by before going on to see the black-winged kite. And I did chat for quite some time to a guy called Adam. We both eventually walked up onto the bridge over the canal, or whatever the body of water is at Ludham. I guess that was actually Ludham Bridge we were standing on. While we waited, we could see John in the distance and all the birders. We were hoping that we might from there be able to see the black-winged kite, but it was too distant and there were too many trees in the way, so we couldn't. But what I did see, I was very pleased about, was a kingfisher flew under the bridge and landed on a post right in front of us, just for a split second until he spotted us, and then he flew off. But I thought, oh, brilliant. I thought I was going to be waiting until well into the year to see a kingfisher after John's lucky one, and to see that blue and orange really close by, only for a split second, so no photographs, but it just lifted the spirits. And it was a lovely day. It was really, really bitterly cold. Now the snow had stopped, but blue skies. And so it was quite pleasant up there. From there, because we had taken this detour, we stayed overnight in a hotel along the way with the idea that the next day we would go to Welney.
Yeah, I think the original plan was to go via Welney, the Wildfowl and Wetland Trust Centre at Welney. But we did it just going via Ludham Bridge and Norwich to try and take in the black-winged kite.
And actually, that was a better way to do it, because as we said, on the day when we left the accommodation to go to Ludham, was really heavy snow. It was really unpleasant driving conditions. So having the next day to start very close to Welney and be able to spend a little bit more time there was great. We particularly wanted to go to Welney with the chance of seeing tree sparrow, which we very rarely see nowadays. And they have a wintering flock of hooper swan around that area. And we were very much hoping we might see a Buick swan. They're getting much rarer to see now. They're not coming over and spending winter in the UK as much as they used to in previous years. Thoughts are that they're actually staying in Europe and not making the trip across the North Sea because the winters are a bit milder and they're finding the food that they need in Europe. But we stopped at one point on the way to Welney where we saw a reasonable number of swans, and we just pulled over just to be sure we'd have a little look through the flock. And we were very lucky.
We were, yeah. There were probably about 20 swans in the field. And when we got close, we were able to pull up along the road, maybe half a mile, quarter of a mile short of getting to Welney itself. We're able to take pictures of the swans, look at them through the binoculars. We didn't want to get out of the car because I'm convinced if we'd got out of the car and they'd seen the human shape, they would have taken flight straight away. So we had to stay in the car. But yeah, I think we spotted 2 Buick swans amongst about 20 or so hooper swans. And it was really handy to have the 2 different swan species side by side to make the comparison. So the Buicks being slightly smaller and also sufficiently good views of the beaks to be able to see the difference in the yellow and black colouring and patterns on the beak to tell them apart. Now, what is it? The Buicks tend to have a bit more black, less yellow on the beak, and the nostrils of the Buick swans are within the black part of the beak rather than the yellow part of the beak, which is what the hooper swans have.
Yeah, with the hooper swans, the black can extend up to the nostrils, but it doesn't usually extend past the nostrils. So you do need to be close enough to be able to be sure that that's what you're seeing. We just had the Buicks in the field and then some hoopers further off. I think we would have struggled a bit more, but we had 3 hoopers standing next to these 2 Buicks. And at times they were either on the ground, sitting on the ground, or feeding. But then every now and then they would put their necks up straight, and the difference between the 2 species was very noticeable. We were able to watch them for about 15 minutes, I think. And then they got spooked, whether it was because the car had been there for such a long time or something else spooked them, but they actually flew off over towards Welney. But we were thrilled because, that's pretty much our only opportunity to see Buick swans. And we only had that morning to see them. And we were just extremely lucky. We worked hard on that one and we got it. Spent a nice morning at Welney, got the tree sparrows, or 2 of them actually, a couple of reed buntings, and we saw some ruff. Oh, well, before I get to the ruff, we went over into the hide part across the bridge and into the big glass windowed hide. And was surprised to see that the water on the other side was frozen. There was some patches of water, and where the open water was most was in the distance. And there were lots of birds over there, which made it a bit tricky to see. But we had quite a few geese and ducks close by, walking on top of the ice, and the swans waddling through. And what was interesting was watching small groups of greylags coming into land on the ice. And you'd be thinking, whoa, what's going to happen? And they were really direct. They came in, landed, stopped, folded their wings, no slip sliding or anything. They were really sure-footed, considering they were landing on ice. So very impressive.
I think we were hoping we might see goldeneye from there, but yeah, didn't manage to see any. It's possible that they were just way too far off.
Yeah, even for the scope. But on the way back, we stopped again just outside the cafe. There's a little platform outside the cafe, and had a look round. And I thought I could see some collared doves walking in one of the fields. I'd already spotted some fieldfare. And so I thought I could see some collared doves, but we were looking into the wind once again, and it's horrible trying to view things into the wind because your eyes are watering, you can't really see through your binoculars properly, and it's freezing. But we got down to that platform outside the cafe and you put your scope up, didn't you? And what did you think?
I wasn't completely sure. I thought initially I might have been seeing common redstart. Not common redstart at all, common red shank. But then, when I got my eye in a bit better, they look very much like ruff. So, ruff do have bright yellowy orange legs, whereas red shanks have orangey red legs. So, but then, could make out the sort of more distinct profile. I think ruff tend to have quite a small head in proportion to the rest of the body. Also, and this is probably a bit too far off to see this, but when you see them closer up, rough often have that sort of very pale whitish patch at the base of the bill. So yeah, I was pretty sure they were rough, and the birders next to us confirmed that they were, didn't they?
Yeah, I was shocked that I'd thought they were collared doves to begin with. It just shows you, if you've got binoculars that don't reach quite as far as scopes. But you saying about them having a small head, I think, they were walking around the edge of a puddle and pecking at the ground. Now I think back, at the time I thought, how on earth did I think a collared dove looked like a wader? But thinking about it, I think it was the small head. I couldn't see the colour of the legs from that distance. I couldn't actually see that they had long legs because of the grasses that were around. So I feel a little bit justified in thinking they were collared doves because they had this sort of palish colouring as well. But yeah, through the scope, we could see they weren't collared doves. And so I was really pleased about that because Rough, that had been your 200th bird of 2025, and you got it on the 4th of January.
Yeah, I was going to say I've developed a bit of a soft spot for Rough because the first time I've ever seen 200 birds in a calendar year in the UK, Rough was my 200th bird. So yeah, I was really delighted to see them, and so early in January as well.
And actually, we've seen them a few other times since then, haven't we? So
we have, yeah.
Quite surprisingly.
I was just going to say one other quick bird of note at Welney, which we normally see a few times each year, but not that often. We also saw cattle egret, didn't we?
Oh, yes. Yeah, so by the 4th of January, I was up to 80 species for the month. I was extremely pleased. It just shows you, though, being in an area where it's very bird rich with a variety of species just makes such a difference. But 80 species by the 4th day of January was amazing. You'll be pleased to know that our January settled down a little bit because then we were back to work and only had weekends to go birding. Actually, the first weekend we were back, we're still on our journey to try and see as many new species as we could in January. And there had been reports of a purple sandpiper. Is it near Portsmouth?
Yeah, South Sea, yeah.
Yeah. So first weekend back, we had a day trip down to Portsmouth, popped over to this area to see if we could see purple sandpiper. We've only seen them a handful of times.
Only once, I think.
Only once?
I think so, yeah. I'm sure the only time we've seen one previously was on that trip to Speyside with Mike Dilger.
Oh, right.
And never in England before.
So I was quite pleased with myself because as we approached the sea wall, I scanned along the rocks and I saw what I thought was a bird on top of the rocks. And I looked through my binoculars and I thought, I'm sure that's the right colouring for a purple sandpiper. But it had its head under its wing and it was just like a little lump on a rock. So John set up his scope and we kept watching and waiting and seeing if, would it move? Would it bring its beak out? And it did. And it was. And I thought, ha! I actually spotted that, so I was very pleased at having been observant. A few birders wandered past and we pointed it out to them. So that was really good. A purple sandpiper, the first time ever in England. And apparently there had been a few seen there over the years, but there'd been lots of works going on to reinforce the sea wall and they'd been displaced. I think other people that we spoke to said there might be about 4 or 5 there. I was just pleased to see one, but hopefully they're starting to come back now that the works have all sort of settled down. The other nice thing we saw as we were walking to that was this big fenced off area on a big green, and it was fenced off specifically so Brent geese could feed there and not be disturbed by people or people walking dogs.
Yeah, I was really impressed by that actually, and it's it's a huge sort of grassed area, and I think it's just fenced off for a couple of months of the year. Yeah, when the Brent geese are around and are wanting to feed. But yeah, it was fantastic to see. So yeah, huge numbers of Brent geese behind this fence and not being bothered by joggers or walkers or dog walkers. So yeah, really, really good to see.
So from there, we popped over to Hayling Island because we'd heard, was it a long-tailed duck was there?
There's been all sorts of things seen there that would have been quite rare for us to see.
Listen to what you said about would have been.
So yeah, long-tailed duck, greater scaup, I think black-necked grebe and possibly red-necked grebe in previous days during the week when we'd been at work had all been reported there. So we went off there to Hayling Island quite hopeful, but after the early elation of seeing the purple sandpiper on our first stop off, we didn't see any of those species that we were hoping to. I think we did see our first goldeneye of the year, didn't we?
Yeah, we saw several of them, didn't we? A little bit distant, but we're able to see them, a male and female, well, a couple of males and females diving and everything. So that was nice to see.
And yeah, lots of flocks of waders, godwits and knot, lots of dunlin. We saw lots, but sadly didn't see any of those that would have been a bit more unusual for us.
It was actually turned out to be a really lovely day, but a short one because it's a winter day. And we were there until sunset. And we stood for quite a long time with a couple of other birders. Right, actually, I think it was one other birder, but someone who was an artist who was coming along and taking photographs of the birds to make paintings of. And we stood there chatting for a while. But while we were there, we saw some lovely flybys of, I think, dunlin, didn't we? Big flocks of dunlin starting to go to roost. And I think the tide was coming in, so there was less and less ground available for them to land on. So they were congregating together. We had lovely views of a green shank that was wandering around. And as we walked back, I got some lovely views of the sunset with the sail tower, that big tower, with geese flying in the foreground.
The Spinnaker Tower.
Spinnaker Tower, yeah. We also saw enormous numbers of turnstone, which we didn't realise there were so many of them. But as we saw a few birds flying to the sort of creek area, into the sides there. And as I scanned along with my binoculars, I was like, oh, and there's another one, and another one, and suddenly there were like 30 of them there, but just hadn't realised because of the light levels and the shadow. But yeah, really worth sort of looking, because you could just walk along there and think, well, there's not much going on. But actually, by using the binoculars and scanning, we saw lots of stuff. I saw was it a little egret we had there? Or was it?
Yes, I think so.
It was a little egret doing the sort of paddling in the water to disturb fish.
There was a kingfisher there as well. I don't think you saw that. Did you?
Of course not.
Sorry.
It was a lovely evening walking back. The sky going all red and reflecting in all the water pools. So just a lovely evening. For the next available weekend in January, John had, for the last few months, been visiting his new favourite local patch, something that's only about 10 minutes from home, 10 minutes drive. I hadn't yet been with him. He'd been going out on early morning walks there. Every time he came back, he kept saying, you'll really love it there. You've got to go. So this particular weekend, we decided, right, we'll go. I'll have a look. I'll get a chance to see some of the woodland birds that I really love seeing. So I think we went there with the idea that we would just spend a couple of hours there. And in my usual slow birding fashion, I think we were there for 4 or 5 hours in the end. But we had taken breakfast with us, so we'll talk about that. But yeah, really lovely site. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it, John?
I came across it just looking locally on eBird, using the explore function on eBird, and noticed a hotspot at this place called Moulsehanger Park, which is just outside Oakley, which in turn is just outside Basingstoke. So, as you said, really close to home for us. I first started going there last autumn and trying to go there at least once a month just to see what birds are around. And yeah, to my surprise, given it's so close to home, on almost every visit that I've had there, I've seen or heard ravens, crossbill, siskins, missel thrush. So birds that are not hugely rare, but very unusual to find them so close to home. Because previously, for those sorts of birds, we've been to places like the New Forest, which is maybe 45 minutes away. So yeah, like I say, I'd been there a number of times. Was really keen to take you along because I know you love woodland birds so much, and there's a stretch of the walk. It's sort of a mixture of open parkland, woodland, farmland, quite a short circuit that you can do. Although, as you said, it can take a number of hours depending on how fast you go. Yeah, and the other thing, the previous weekend when I'd done a walk there, I'd also seen huge numbers of redpoll, which was fantastic. I think we went the whole of 2025 without seeing any redpoll at all. So again, that was a real thrill to see those, especially in such large numbers and so close to home. We didn't manage to see redpoll, sadly, when I went back with you, but I'm sure they're still around, and I'm sure there's more opportunity to see them. But we did see the crossbill, missel thrush, big flocks of fieldfare. There's one spot where I always seem to see lots of greenfinch singing in the tops of the trees, and they were there again, which was lovely. Siskin we saw, the raven we saw. So yeah, all the birds I was really hoping would still be around to show you, they were there, with the exception, I think, of the red poll.
I didn't get siskin on that day.
Oh, did you not? Okay.
No, but one of my first birds I saw there was coaltip, so I was really pleased about that. Picked up green woodpecker as well. Had the nuthatch, which I hadn't yet had. Yes, because I saw goldcrest, firecrest and tree creeper in Holcombe Wood, but it took until then to get a nuthatch. A couple of really nice moments. We stopped it was really lovely having all the greenfinch around, hearing them. And I think there was quite a few. We saw big flocks of fieldfare flying over, chacking, chack, 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 chack. And we stopped to have breakfast, just coffee and a healthy muffin. And in this spot, you suddenly went on alert because you thought you'd heard something. So you got your scope all set up and looked, and that's where the crossbill was, just in the top of a tree, and it was singing. I tried to record it. It was a little bit windy that day, and I don't think I really managed to do it justice. But yeah, really, really pleased to have seen that. And then as we were walking away, we realised we could hear mistle thrush singing, and I really paid attention to it. And I think I've probably heard mistle thrush singing in the past, but didn't realise it was mistle thrush because it is similar to blackbird's song. But we heard mistle thrush several times. So that was really nice. It was a really good opportunity to focus on a particular species and listen to how that sounds. And of course, this time of year, it's lovely because the song in the mornings is starting to ramp up. And that was quite a sunny day. So birds were singing. And and that eventual raven as well. So really happy with that day. Shout out to Nicola and Bex, who we chatted to on the route. They stopped to ask us what we were looking at. I think I was possibly looking for a nuthatch at that point. But anyway, it was nice to chat to them. They live locally and they gave us some tips on other birds we might see around. They weren't necessarily birders. I think Nicola was a photographer, but very nice to talk to them. So thank you. The following weekend, we decided to go on another twitch. We popped down to, no, I'm not sure where it's near. Fawley? Is it near Fawley on the coast at Hampshire?
Yeah, near Fawley, sort of on Southampton Water. The little town is called Holbury. So since the end of last year, since about November, there's been a very rare bird in the area, a great-tailed grackle. And thoughts are that it probably came across the Atlantic on a ship because they are known to take free passage on ships occasionally. I don't think it's thought that it got blown across in any storms. When it first arrived, it was seen around Southampton, I think, and it's moved inland a little bit. But the reports had continued coming, so I thought, okay, let's take the chance and go down and see if we can see it. We had amazing views of it. It is quite tolerant of people, and I think lots of people have been feeding it. And we spoke to the person whose garden it was in when we were all standing there, and she said that she and some of the neighbours have been feeding it. And when it first turned up, it was quite ragged looking, but now it's in beautiful condition. So it's looking like it's doing really well. It's unlikely it's ever going to get back home. I just hope that it manages a long life here. Unfortunately, it's coming into breeding conditions, so it's calling for mates, which it's never going to find. And hopefully it won't be predated. But anyway, it's doing really well at the moment. So it's been here sort of 3 odd months. And I think that's great to see it in good condition and that it's surviving. But a beautiful bird, really glossy black plumage, long beak and very striking yellow eyes. And this big tail, big wide tail. And usually they're found in sort of Texas, California, Central America. We saw loads when we were in Panama. It wasn't a lifer for us, but it was a first to be seen in the UK. Currently, it's not
it's being reflected on our list as a possible, I think the flag is of exotic provisional, but doesn't matter. We saw it. It's another species, and it wasn't one that had just popped out of someone's cage. So that was really lovely. Oh, and shout out to Matt, who's the rock and roll birder on YouTube, who was also there filming, and I'm sure you'll see things on his YouTube channel about the great-tailed grackle.
I think the great-tailed grackle is probably my highlight of January. They were really quite common in Panama City when we were there, because we'd seen so many, and without being unkind, in Panama City they were quite scruffy and ragged looking birds. So I was really pleasantly surprised when we saw this one in Hampshire, and it was in such beautiful condition and so close up you could really see the glossy blue-black plumage. A really stunning bird. So I think because it took me by surprise. We had such good views, and it was in such beautiful condition, and so confiding as well, with so many birders around it. I think that was probably my January highlight.
Yeah, it was a real thrill to see it, and to see it was doing well. And it wasn't being hounded. People were being really respectful. Yes, we were looking into someone's garden, but we're all very careful not to sort of point cameras where we shouldn't. And as I say, we did speak to the owner of the house, and they did seem quite chill about it. So I think they were quite thrilled to have that bird there as well. We went on from there to a site we'd never been to before, but we went there because another rarity from America had turned up. This one probably had been blown here through storms, a killdeer, which is a small plover, a little bit like a ringed plover. We found it. I think we found it because someone else pointed it out to us. We had been scanning around, but we were only really getting views through the scope. It was a rainy day, very poor visibility. It was off in the distance, so it was pretty hard to see. But one of the first things I noticed when I was looking through my binoculars, it wasn't doing a great deal. And once again, we were facing into the wind. So, of course, so was the bird, because I think it's more comfortable for them not to have their feathers ruffled the wrong way. So we were only seeing back views of it, which was a bit of a nuisance because we wanted to see the neck bands. But it did preen a couple of times, and I could see this beautiful sort of caramel coloured feathers on its rump, which made me think, well, this is different anyway. It's not a common ring plover. But then it did start walking around, and we did manage to see it properly. I did some digiscoping as well while trying to hold the tripod up because strong winds again. It's been a windy month and a rainy month. But yeah, so that was brilliant. Another lifer. And then we separated. You started to walk back. I think you'd got very chilled. I will give a shout out to a few other people we met there. It was quite nice chatting to people. We met Emma and Amanda and James and Zoe from Weymouth, who we may well see on a Birds of Poole Harbour trip, because apparently they take those quite often. So it was lovely chatting with them. But yeah, John wandered off back towards the car. And as he did, I just did one more scan around, because we had also heard that a little gull had been sighted. And we'd looked through all the gulls trying to see. We did get a med gull. I think that was our first med gull of the year as well.
A quick aside. When I say med gull, I mean Mediterranean gull. We've got so used to speaking in shorthand about the birds we see that I sometimes forget others might not know what we mean.
And I noticed this gull on its own in the reservoir just near some shovelers. And I thought it looked unusual because it seemed to have a black head. And I had just looked at the description of a little gull. And yes, it was a little gull. So I quickly texted John to say, I found it, come back. And I did manage to catch up with John, and we walked all the way back, but unfortunately it had flown off. So I do apologise, but I got little gull. From there, we just popped off. We only had like an hour of daylight left. So we popped over to Blashford Lakes, which is one of our favourite sites, on the way back, and just sat for an hour in the Turnhide, where we picked up a few other birds, tufted duck, goosander, and lesser black-backed gull. I think you had a few others, but
the first goosander of the year, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah.
Nice.
I ended up on that day at 105 species for January, and the only extra thing I had was I did the Big Garden Bird Watch at the end of January. Only got 7 species on my list that time, but what I did have, and they were all my regular garden birds, blackbird and Wood pigeon, unsurprisingly, is always in the garden. Blue tit, great tit. What I did have fly over, possibly, I had a bird fly over, and I was recording at the time because there was a lot of bird song, and that's what I've really noticed ramping up during January. In the early mornings, we're hearing bird song again from blackbirds and robins and wren. And there were quite a lot of birds singing on that day of the bird watch. So I was recording. And while I was recording, a bird flew over with a call that I didn't quite recognise. Merlin thought it was a redpoll. I obviously didn't include it because, it has to be only birds that are in your garden that are counted. But I was doing an eBird list at the same time for all birds that I could see or hear. But I didn't include it on the list. But if it had been a redpoll and it had stopped, that would have been a first for our garden. I think while we've been here, would it have been a first? Actually, no, I think we may have had redpoll once before. But anyway, it'd be extremely unusual bird to have in our garden. So I'll play the call. If anyone out there can recognise redpoll, do let me know, because I haven't yet got redpoll on my list. I won't put it down for January, but I hope to see one anyway. But it would be interesting to know that one had flown over. And then my only other bird for January was at something like 2:00 in the morning at my mum's house on the 31st of January. I heard a tawny owl calling. So I was able to, that was like my last bird of January. Which took me to 106 species for January. I did try waking John up, but, he was dead to the world, and he did partially wake up and then he was gone again. And the bird didn't call, and it was very much in the distance, so he didn't hear it. But John, what did you end up on for the end of January?
I ended up on 110, which I was really pleased with.
So what were your extra species that I didn't get? Do you know?
There were things like the black-winged kite and bearded tit. So, a few while we were still in Norfolk that I managed to get. And the redpoll and siskin on our new local patch. But like I say, that's so close. I'm sure we can pay another visit there.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You'll be able to add redpoll and siskin as well, I hope. But my last new bird that I added to my January list. So I occasionally have to go to London for work, and whenever I can, I try and take a walk through one of the big parks in London, so St James's Park or Hyde Park, depending on where I have to be. And these days going through those parks, you have to be quite unlucky not to see or hear ringneck parakeets. So my last new bird for January was a ringneck parakeet in London.
So a really good start to the year. Really, really helped by being in Norfolk for the first few days. Yeah, and helped by having a couple of lifers and a couple of unusual birds around for us to go and see. I think we've been birding most weekends just for a day or half a day of a weekend, just to try and get out there. It's been a bit miserable, rainy, wet, windy. I think the thing that has lifted me up most this month, it was wonderful seeing the grackle. It really was. Beautiful views of it. The thing that has lifted me up most this month is hearing the bird song. I think hearing it in the morning starting to ramp up, hearing those missel thrushes singing was really lovely. Hearing the crossbill singing, which, I hadn't expected, and I don't know that I've heard particularly often. As I say, it was windy that day, so it wasn't a great recording, but, we heard it. I think we've had a really nice January. So thank you for pointing out Mulsinger Park. That was, I'm glad we went there. I think our new plan of trying to see birds when we can, when it's not too far away, and being able to spend some time watching them. I must say, I would have liked to spend more time watching the Killdeer, but it was so cold, so wet, and such dismal conditions that, there's a limit. but if the conditions are nice, I do like hanging around and watching the birds for longer.
It's been an amazingly good start to the year. As you say, I maybe it's always been this way. I've previously tended to associate birdsong with sort of early spring or spring generally. But it's been fantastic to hear, this early in the year, as you pointed out, birds like the crossbill and the missel thrush singing, dunnock as well. We've heard the blackbirds starting to sing. Feels very early, but yeah, as you say, it really lifts spirits to hear that sort of bird song so early in the year.
And also, the birds have been scouting out nesting accommodation. Even before we'd left the first accommodation we were staying with, actually over Christmas, we'd noticed in the garden great tits and blue tits checking out the nest boxes that they had already up in the garden. When we got home, we've got a hole in our wall that last year was used as a nesting area, which we wanted to prevent this year. So we put up a bird box over that hole. We filled the hole and put a bird box over it. And straight away, because I knew that the blue tits had been checking it out, and in fact we'd seen some evidence of that they'd pulled some insulation out the wall and left it on the floor, so we knew they were looking at it again. I didn't want them inside the wall because I was worried that they would just carry on and fall through the cavity and we'd lose the birds. So we put a bird box over the hole, and that afternoon, or I think the following morning, I'd seen the blue tit checking it out, so hopefully they'll nest in that box. And with all the song, I mean, the blackbird has been singing in the mornings. There's been a couple of them. The song thrush as well. There's been a couple of song thrushes, or a song thrush using different locations. It's starting to get lighter in the mornings, which is lovely. But hearing the bird song helps that feeling that spring is on the way, which is my absolute favourite time of year. So I'm really, really looking forward to every sign of spring, any little bud that's coming on a tree, and days when it's not dismal and wet and gloomy and the sun's out. Just makes me think of sunshine and bird song. So I'm looking forward to all of that. But all that to one side, we're already at 106 species for January. And
110.
All right, 110 for you, 106 for me. So a really good year. So it's like, what are we going to find in the next few months? So thanks for joining me, and I look forward to chatting to you at the beginning of March when we review our February birding that we've done.
Yeah, look forward to it. Thanks, Suzy.
I'll put a list of the birds that I saw in January on my website, along with some photos. Take a look for the link in the episode notes. I do love to hear what birds you've been seeing, so send me a message on the contact page on my website, casualbirder.com, or tag me in your posts on Instagram. I want to give a shout out to our wonderful Casual Birder community hosted on Circle. With really friendly and knowledgeable members, it's our space to share trip reports, photos, ask questions of the community, and just hang out. The Casual Birder Bird Club is now an exclusive perk for our community. It's a monthly online bird club with regular attendees from the UK, Germany, Canada, and sometimes Australia. We share our recent bird sightings, photographs, and special guest presentations. So if you've ever thought about joining us, sign up now at the link in the episode notes and enjoy a free trial period. We'd love for you to join us. And if you'd like to help support the show's production, you can buy me a virtual coffee at ko-fi.com. And again, the link is in the episode notes. My thanks to Randy Braun for designing the artwork for the show, and to the Drones for the theme music, Short Sleeve Shirt. Check out their website at dronesmusic.net. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode of the Casual Birder podcast.